Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is 10 o'clock, so I'll call our meeting to order this morning. Forgot that part. Yeah, thanks, Rob. So please join me and rise and we'll sing the national anthem.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and those joining us remotely. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll call, please?
Morning, everyone. Councillor Mackey is not in attendance at this time, but will be joining us later on. Councillor McKay. Here. Councillor Carlton. Present. Councillor Pringle. Present. Councillor McQueen will be joining us later on this morning. Councillor Nielsen sends his regrets. Councillor Patterson. Present. Councillor Dickert. Councillor Kentner. Present. Councillor Keaveney. Present. Councillor Body sends his regrets. Councillor Kepke. Present. Councillor Gregg. Present. Warden Milne. Present. Councillor Dobreen. Present. Councillor Matrosovs.
Present.
Councillor Bourdignon.
Present.
Councillor Eccles.
Counted for.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations of the Grand River, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, Wyandot, Wyandot peoples on whose traditional territories we gather and whose ancestors signed treaties with our ancestors. We recognize also the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all of its diverse peoples. Is there any declaration related to declaration of pecuniary interest related to any item on today's agenda? Not seeing any. If one should arise, you can declare it at that time. Adoption of minutes. We have the County Council and Committee of the Whole minutes dated August 10th. Would someone care to make a motion to receive those? Councillor Keaveney, Councillor Mackey. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Point of order.
McKay.
Well, I thought he might be online somewhere. So we're off to a good start. We also have the closed committee. Yes, I did vote. Did I? Yeah. Closed committee of the whole minutes dated August 10th of this year. Someone care to move those? Councillor Carlton, Councillor Pringle. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. I note that Councillor McKay voted for that. Long-term care redevelopment planning task force minutes dated August 10th of this year. Someone care to move that, please? Councillor Dickert, Councillor Eccles. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Special Committee of the Whole Strategic Planning Session minutes dated August 29th of this year. Someone care to move those? Councillor Dobreen, Councillor Patterson, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. And the special joint and special council meeting minutes dated August 31st of this year. Councillor Gregg, Councillor Eccles. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We have no closed meeting matters. There are no further reports, no bylaws, news and celebrations. Anybody have anything like to share? Councillor McKay.
Thank you. The World's Fair is coming up in Chatsworth on August 6th or September 16th. So it should be a full day. The weather's supposed to be lovely. So anybody can get a chance to get out and welcome the country folk and support your local fall fairs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Carlton.
Good morning, County Council. Just to let everybody know, Concours d'Elegance is taking place this weekend at Cobble Beach. So hopefully everybody can get there and see some of those cars. There will be sections of it downtown on Saturday with Concours de Le Mans and another event going at the Roxy that I forget the name of, but it'll be a full weekend for Concours.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Warden Millen, and good morning, County Council. I would just want to share that Hanover staff were bursting for better on Monday, September the 11th, at the very first all-staff mandatory training. The agenda was an investment in our staff and included a keynote address, understanding work-life balance. As well, there was an opioid awareness, OMERS education, and budget 101 sessions. Over 80 staff attended, and it was 4.5 hours, and each left with a candygram message saying, "We are bursting with appreciation for all that you do. Team Hanover is better because of all that you do." As our facilities were closed, I and a fellow counselor volunteered to greet visitors at our civic center, and we had a very busy day answering questions, directing people, and signing for packages. All in all, it was a good day and very pleased to invest in our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and good morning, everyone. And as we know, there's always something special going on in Meaford. This is our 26th annual Scarecrow Invasion that's happening right now in particularly in our downtown area, but throughout the municipality. Our downtown is decorated with scarecrows, all in a pirate theme this year, all through Sykes Street and around our harbor with corn stalks on every light pole. It's absolutely beautiful. There will be on the 29th of September our parade and family festival that we certainly invite everyone to attend. Following that, on the 30th and the 1st of October is the Apple Harvest Craft Show, which is an event that happens in our community center with crafts for one and all. So thank you very much and see you in Meaford.
Thank you, Shirley. Councillor DeBreen.
Good morning, Warden. Good morning, County Council. I just wanted to share that the Dundalk Agricultural Society celebrated their 166th Fall Fair last weekend with a record number of people through the gate and almost 1 ton of French fries sold.
Healthy eating at its best. Councillor Eccles.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and rise to say that I hope that I'm not mistaken, but the World's Fair, to get around the world, it took 40 days, but the World's Fair only lasts 1 day? Oh, okay. Well, we'll see if we can make it in between times of the International Fair, which happens this weekend in Newstead. It runs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. A little slower. Yeah, or just a little bit more to celebrate. We have more than 1 ton of natural product down at the brewery that needs to be consumed, so it usually takes more than 1 day. Fall Fair does run Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There is the society puts on a pork chop barbecue So there's no advance ticket sales. Show up and they'll have enough to feed you probably on the Sunday to make do for the rest of the week if you would so like to do. That's what's happening among many other things in West Grey, but that's the highlight this weekend there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jen.
I'm pleased to announce that Sarah McNeil, a member of our HR team, has been appointed to the Ontario Municipal Human Resources Association, OMRA, to the Board of Directors. OMRA is celebrating their 60th anniversary this year, and the board has focused on appointing a diverse group of HR professionals working in municipal HR. Sarah has joined them as a staff member working in municipal HR with less than 5 years experience in municipal HR. Sarah supports as our HR business partner, our non-union and our paramedic group. I believe she's a future leader of Grey County, and we're so proud that she's joined the OMRA board. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, and congratulations to Sarah. Anyone else? Savannah.
Thank you so much, Warden. Good morning, County Council. Last week, we were fortunate to welcome the Minister, Minister Tassi here from Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario. And she was here for two very exciting moments, both held here in Owen Sound. The first was a $3.5 million investment in Hydrogen Optimized for the rugged cell production and automation that they are working on, along with 50 new jobs, which is very exciting. And a huge congratulations goes out to that team. They have grown immensely. And right following that, we were able to do a roundtable with the minister. So we had representatives from both Grey and Bruce counties sitting around the table talking about people, priorities, and possibilities, and where we would see things heading in the future. It was a great conversation. Councillor Carlton was fortunate to be around that table as well. And I think we all left there very energized and ready to action items, knowing that FedDev is with us along the way. So it was a great morning last Thursday.
Thank you, Savannah. That's exciting news for sure. Kim.
Good morning, Council. I wanted to bring to your attention a couple of items that are upcoming. On Friday, September 22nd, the Salvation Army and OSHARE here in the city of Owen Sound are opening the Grey Bruce Food Share resource. And this is going to be something that will aid all of your local food banks. It's a place where they'll be able to come and get supplies and resources to kind of fill their shelves again. So really looking forward to that event. And then later that day, this is the 10th anniversary of OSHARE this year. And I think people know in 2022, they served over 123,000 meals there. And I think that number has probably grown significantly since last year. This is a fundraiser for them. So there's a walk with OSHARE on the 22nd at 4 o'clock. And I'm going to participate, and I hope I can encourage a lot of the staff to join me in that event. But I thought I would bring it to everyone's attention in case others were interested. They're doing great work there, and I hope we can support them. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. Anyone else? Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and good morning, County Council. Just want to say that the South Grey Chamber of Commerce is hosting their, well, this will be the inaugural, on October 19th, the Business Awards banquet. And that's going to be held at the Durham Community Center. And you can nominate any local businesses that are chamber members in the South Grey area. So I believe they close tomorrow. So if you know any businesses that you'd like to nominate, please go on the website and you can certainly nominate them there. And tickets and full details are on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. I'd take a motion to adjourn from our council meeting. Councillor DeBreen, Councillor Pringle. All those in favor? That is carried. We'll just take a minute to switch our, all that stuff. Yeah. Very good. We'll call the council meeting to order, or the committee of the whole meeting rather, to order. Is there any declaration of interest related to any item on today's agenda? Not seeing any. If one should arise, you can declare it at that time. We have a delegation scheduled tentatively for 10:30. We'll work towards that. We have the consent agenda. Are there any items there that anyone wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you, Warden. I would like to pull item B, PDR CW 41-23, NB Martin Manufacturing Inc. Official Plan Amendment Merit Report for discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Not seeing any. I'll take a motion to receive and deal with the items that are on the consent agenda. Councillor Patterson and Councillor Deckard. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. So moving on to items for direction and discussion. The first is inaugural considerations. Our clerk, Tara Warder, will be presenting that report. Would someone care to move receiving it? Councillor Mackey and Councillor Eccles.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Good morning, County Council. This report seeks direction from yourselves on what time of day you'd like to see the inaugural County Council meeting. It's currently listed in our procedural bylaw that it will happen on the first Tuesday in December at 7:30 p.m. However, since the pandemic, we have been holding it as a daytime meeting to accommodate social gathering restrictions and whatnot. So this particular council hasn't been asked what time of day you'd actually like to see that meeting. And based on some feedback we had at the end of 2022, the inaugural experience could have been improved upon. So just seeking some feedback from you on what time of day you'd like to see that meeting happen. Staff are recommending a time of 5 p.m., but you could keep it the same as it currently is at 7:30 or move it to a different time that you'd like to see. So happy to answer any questions and looking forward to the feedback you have on the subject.
Thank you, Chair. Does anyone have any questions, comments, thoughts? I know I was asked what my thoughts were, and I shared that I had spoke to a few councillors, and the consensus seemed to be that they'd like something a little more formal, a little more decorous, perhaps. I'm not sure if that's the right word or not, but the 11 o'clock time seemed to be a little more business oriented, and we'd rather have something a little more, as I say, formal, perhaps. So the saw-off was kind of 5 o'clock, but we're open to suggestions, ideas. Councillor Gregg.
Well, I'll just pass along my perspective. Either is fine with us in Owen Sound, but we're privileged here because we're 10 minutes, 5 minutes down the road getting home. So I was actually receptive just to hearing, the commentary from perhaps the municipalities that have a little further drive, but I'm quite fine with 5. I'm quite fine with 7:30 ourselves here in town, but of course that's distance.
Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you. And I would echo, I'm good with any time, but I do like the idea of having it slightly earlier than 7:30, especially if families with children are attending to ring in a warden, also to get those of us that do travel at that time of year home in a reasonable hour. 7:30 would be more like 10 o'clock, but I like the idea of the 5 o'clock.
And just to be clear, we're not going to party here all night, although we could, and we probably have, but we don't need to, but nonetheless. So. Oh, Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. 5 o'clock would be suitable for, I will speak on behalf of Westbury because we do have, that's our normal council day. So we would be wrapped up in time to certainly make our way over to Owen Sound. Thank you.
Okay, well, the recommendation is 5 p.m. in the motion. So if everyone's agreeable to that, I will call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Madam Clerk. 20 after 10. I'll just wait for the clerk to come here, see ya. Do we want to do the capital? To the HCM. Okay, report B is related to our delegation. So perhaps if no one objects, we'll skip over that and go to item C, which is the HCM capital project. Jennifer, you're okay to speak to that now? Yeah. Okay, if someone would move acceptance to that, Councillor Dickert and Councillor Carlton. Welcome, Jennifer. Floor is yours.
Through you, Mr. Warden. The report that you have before you represents quite a bit of work for the HR team. The research and analytics into purchasing an HCM started long before I began in 2021. So we have been at this for quite a while. What we are asking you, and you've had the report and the chance to read it, is to approve awarding to Ceridian. Ceridian is a well-known human capital management software system within Canada and North America. It provides all of the features that we need to grow and become an efficient HR team that can provide key performance indicators and metrics to the management team. Right now, we use 3 different siloed systems, actually 4, if you include the system that we use for our paramedic group. So it represents quite a bit of efficiency. And my hope is that I can come to you 9 months after our project is completed and report back to you on the return of investment of efficiencies that we've found through using this modern, efficient software system. So I will allow you to ask any questions of myself. Mary Lou as well is here to answer detailed questions about the financials in the report. And my colleagues Sam and Will are here as well if there are questions that I do not know the answer to.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any questions? Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Warden. I guess that I should ask to hold council in the future accountable for this decision. Can you elaborate on the challenges right now with the software that you currently have and the processes in place, and how the efficiencies that this purchase is going to contribute to are going to be measured?
Through you, Mr. Warden, to Councillor Gregg. I could probably go on for an hour about the inefficiencies of the current systems we have, but I'll give you a couple of examples. So right now we have a software scheduling system in long-term care. When we need to replace a staff member, if we are absent an RN or an RPN or a PSW, what happens is we have to go to a separate texting system that we send out a text to staff. That does not communicate back to our scheduling system. So what happens is a RN sitting at home sees this message and decides, yes, I would like to take that shift. She sends a text back. So someone in the long-term care home, either a manager or a office coordinator or a schedule, has to watch for that answer. Then they have to go into the system, they have to update that system, and then they have to functionally notify by email, by text again, or by phone call to the RN that that shift has been accepted. That process may take upwards of 2 hours. And with our new system that we will be implementing, the system will send out a text message. It will send it to the right amount of people by seniority, and that person can accept either by voicemail, whichever is their preference, voicemail, text, or email. They accept the shift, it goes into the system, and it updates. So that is just one tiny example. But right now we have a staff scheduling system that is separate from an HRIS. If I am Kevin, and I would like a report on overtime for my team, if I'd like a quick demographics, I need to reach out to an HR business partner via email, voicemail, or phone call. and ask for that report. This system will provide Kevin the ability to go in and see his reports that are available to him on a dashboard system, and he can print them out and start using his information immediately. He doesn't have to have an intermediary. We are always available to help go through those analytics with him, but the opportunity for a manager to see what is live and relevant to their team will be at their computer screen immediately. And again, there are many, many, many other opportunities with this system, but it's just an example of the efficiencies we'll see.
I can add that one of the key modernization features for the staff themselves is the ability for staff self-serve. Again, as noted in the report, there are a lot of steps in the chain where if a manager wants to see where, like, somebody's asked for time off, you have to go into a standalone system. You have to see whether, you know, where that person is with their entitlements and what they've used and what they've got left. And then that has to be manually input into that system. And then there needs to be, you know, a check back. In the system like this, the employee can see in real time where their various banks sit. Their manager can look and see where their various staff are with how much they've got left. So, you know, as the year gets later and we're trying to make sure that people have used all of the vacation that they should have, so that we're not having carryovers into the next year, et cetera. That right now is a kind of an onerous and manual process, where in a system like this, it's in one place. I think the other thing for managers is the ability to really look at metrics about things like not only vacation utilization, but sick time and who's taken what courses this year or in the past. If I know that I need someone with a particular skill set, can I find that anywhere in the corporation? What if I need someone who speaks a particular language, for example, because I've got a client at the desk who's really having a bit of a struggle? This is the kind of information that will be available to us there. And it's hard. You're asking for metrics, and sometimes it's hard to put a price on some of these things, but I think that the benefits to the corporation and to the individual people who are working here really do add up to something that will allow us to be a lot more efficient, but also more like focused or directed in what it is that we're trying to achieve. I hope that helps.
Thanks. I find that good information. I hear communication, which is super valuable, and you know, employees need to disconnect when their workday is over at 5 o'clock. Anything we can do to improve their ability to just enjoy life beyond work is good. I hear efficiencies. Have you some sort of a vision in terms of like employee hours over the years of once this is initiated that you think you will see a reduction? You spoke a little bit in terms of manual processes that are in place now and data entering. Is that one of the factors that you're a couple of years from now thinking, okay, we've been able to reduce by 750 hours or 3,000 hours, whatever the case may be?
I can't through you, Mr. Warden, Councillor Greg, I can't guarantee it, but I can say that as far as payroll employees are concerned, we have at least an equivalent to one full-time position in overtime for the payroll team. I'm very hopeful that this new system, once fully rolled out, which will be about a year from now, provides a work-life balance for my payroll team, that they can get their work done within the normal working day. It should make our year end much more efficient, which will assist both our payroll team that works in HR and our financial team that works for Mary Lou. So whereas I cannot guarantee at this point, I'm very hopeful that we will save that overtime cost for our payroll team.
Okay. Thank you for those questions and answers. Anyone else have any questions? Councillor Eccles.
Thank you. And it's more towards the funding. There's about 148,000 was in the 2023 budget, or it's going to be used from one-time funding in the reserve. So this might be more for Mary Lou going forward. It'll be into the 2024 budget. It'll be from taxes, so it's gonna be what? Another, if it stays at that 150,000 quarter, the third of a point on the taxes to, it's already built into the 2024 budget. Mary Lou?
Oh, I was just going to say, I can see Mary Lou madly using her calculator, so let's just give her a moment to get that.
Thank you. So we had a budget of $300,000 for 2023, and that's from reserves. Once we get into the software subscription costs that you can see, those are the things that are going to hit your annual budget. So we're looking at funding implementation from reserve, but then you get into the annual cost that we pay to be able to use a system, then that's what you're hitting the levy with. So if a 1% increase for 2024 is about $690,000, the math on 160,000 for next year is that's about a 0.24% increase on the levy. There will be some costs that will drop off in later years when we can get rid of software that we currently have. So when we quit paying for the portion of our financial software, Great Plains, that's where Canadian Payroll resides currently. There'll be some small savings there. It's not huge dollars, but then when you remove scheduling software, when we remove a software called HRware that already has annual costs, those costs will come off, but not for a few years until this is fully implemented. I hope that helps.
Okay, Kim?
Just if I'm correct about how this agreement works, this software, the cost of it is calculated on a per seat basis. And my understanding is that for the suite of services that they're providing, it's like $14 a person per month. But there are things in there that are quite complex that have to do with claims and things like that that do take up an awful lot of staff time. So I think the perception is that there's some good value there, although it is a significant investment, it seems, at one time.
Councillor Dubreen.
Thank you, Warden, and through you. Good morning. And so the total fixed fee of almost, 1.2 million is covered over the 5-year period. The 160,000 that you referred to is in addition to that as a subscription rate. I'm just trying to do the math in my head, and I don't have a calculator.
I think through you, Mr. Warden, in an effort to be entirely transparent with council, because we're entering into a 5-year agreement, we wanted to ensure that council was aware of the total implications of that 5-year agreement. But we will be paying a portion of that total cost on an annual basis.
Okay, any other? Oh, Jennifer.
I would like to note as well that as part of the negotiated RFP, we did include a clause that will allow any member municipality within Grey County to avail themselves to this contract and agreement as well under Ceridian. It's my understanding that there are a couple of lower tier municipalities within Grey County that are looking to do this type of work. Our partner, the town of Blue Mountains, has already implemented or is implementing Ceridian, Dayforce. It is a well-known, good HCM. And if we are very hopeful that if there are those within the lower tier that are looking to do this, that they can save the time and effort and avail themselves to this contract as well. And I just wanted to note that because I know there are a couple partners that are looking towards that.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, not seeing any further questions or discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Jen. And Jen, I think we've got our time for our delegation is here. So perhaps, do you want to introduce our delegate, please?
Through you, Mr. Warden, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Jane Mazinski. Jane is the Vice President Compensation Services for Gallagher and Associates. And if I've got that wrong, I don't have my notes right in front of me, so I apologize to Jane. We did an RFP to provide services from a consultant to analyze and review our compensation for non-union and for council. I was before you last council meeting to talk about council compensation, and Jane is joining us now to give a detailed presentation regarding the work that we have done for non-union compensation. So I will turn it over to Jane to explain the work and the processes that we've gone through.
Thank you, Jennifer, and welcome, Jane. The floor is yours. The microphone there, there's a little green button there.
Yeah,
There you go.
there I go. All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present in person. It's, normally you can wear different clothing below the jacket when you're doing virtual presentations, but we are back into the in-person presentation. So appreciate the opportunity to meet with all of you today. I do have, Sarah's going to do slide control for me. Thank you very much, Sarah. So as Jennifer had indicated, Gallagher was retained to assist the county to come up with a refreshed compensation program for the non-union group, the employee group. And it's to make sure that there's appropriate compensation for the organization. And I use that word in the slide deck very deliberately. It's not to suggest that we are going to go ahead and come in as a consultant. It would be great to come in and say, hey, yeah, let's raise everyone's salaries by 10, 15%. I'm sure the employees will be really happy and you'll have some retention. But that's not practical because I have to come before council and do the presentation to say that this is an appropriate compensation program for the organization. So it's really to make sure that you are competitive to the other organizations that you are trying to attract your employees to or from, and so that you can retain your employees as well. You don't want to be losing the staff that you do have. So that's the intent of the word appropriate compensation. So we also want to make sure that the salary administration that you have in place is reflective of best practices in the municipal sector as well. The scope of the review covered approximately 170 positions. I think it was actually ended up being 173, and that it covers off approximately 223 actual incumbents in the review. Elements of the review include job evaluation, market review to make sure we have external equity, then we have pay equity compliance, and I'll speak to that a little bit. And then we wrap all three of these components together to come forward with a pay structure that is capturing all of these elements in the recommendation. Next slide. So the last comprehensive review that was undertaken for the county positions was actually in 2013. That's 10 years. In the marketplace that we have seen in the last few years, that's a huge difference of circumstances that have taken place since 2013 to today's date. Even though there was this lapse of approximately 10 years, the county has been doing some ad hoc market reviews. So when you're recruiting for specific positions, you're not sure what the rate of pay should be. So they've gone out and done a couple of ad hoc through that 10-year period, just to make sure that you're not falling too far behind the municipal sector in the marketplace. So that was okay. Those are good practices to have these little interim checks, but 10 years is a significant period for a comprehensive review. Internal equity, which really speaks to job evaluation, how you are aligning positions together to make sure that jobs of similar value are grouped together and receiving the same rate of pay. You have been maintaining that through a valid job evaluation plan. The Gallagher was the McDowell plan, which has been absorbed by Gallagher. So you would take into consideration any new jobs that have come into the organization, they get evaluated, and any jobs that have come forward as being significant changes and raised by the employees or the managers. So those have been done. However, not all jobs have been evaluated in that 10-year span. And there are times when you have a job, no squawking or squeaking from the incumbents, the managers are fine, everybody's got their heads down doing their work. But you have jobs that maybe are 10 years out of date. Your job description does no longer reflect the actual duties that they're doing. They might have implemented new technology systems that have changed the nature of the work. So we had some jobs in this 173 position listing that hadn't been touched in that period of time. Some positions, new jobs coming in, you're anxious to recruit for them because you've got some mandated or legislated pressures. So you just take that job and you go, where are we going to put it? And you put it into the salary grid that you're working with today. So that means that you didn't do your due diligence to say, is it in the right employee group in that hierarchy or banding structure? Then in terms of maintaining your salaries, there have been annual economic adjustments that have been applied each year. That implies the annual. And they have been implemented in consideration of the consumer price index, other market indicators that can be used. You can look at what your comparator organizations are doing. There's a variety of different elements that you can take a look at to develop and recommendations for your economic increases. And those are usually to say, you know, we're going to try and keep pace with at least inflation. Next slide. So despite the efforts to maintain your internal equity, your external equity, there have been a significant, I don't think I'm telling anyone anything brand new today, there have been significant changes in the marketplace, not just in the municipal sector, but in the broader labor market across all industries and organizations. In the municipal sector in particular, there have been some pressures, some significant pressures on trying to attract and retain staff. There are some job families or job fields that are particularly important or challenging. Planning, building inspection, engineering, municipal finance is a creature of its own. So you can't just take accountants or financial people from the private sector and plop them into a municipal sector because it just doesn't always match. So we've had a lot of disruption and challenge in the municipal sector. We've had baby boomers retiring. Again, it's finally hit the municipal sector in the last few years, 3 to 4 years. And so they're retiring in not just what we would consider the senior management roles, where you then have a nice hierarchy of employees to progress upwards. But these retirements are taking place across all of the employee family groups. So you have people in your technical and your professional roles, in your manager and supervisor roles. So you're losing that pool of candidates to come up into the organization. New entrants, we always then turn around and say, well, what about recruiting new people from the engineering programs, the planning programs, building inspection programs? We're seeing anecdotally, I will say, fewer graduates are actually being attracted into the municipal sector. With a robust labor market in all sectors of the Canadian economy, we're competing with engineering firms, we're competing with accounting firms, we're competing with private developers for the planning services. So those new entrants that are coming out of college and communities, college and university, they're not looking to the municipal sector. They're young, they got student loans, they're trying to pay off those loans and advance their career as fast as possible. They look at the nice bonus that private sector can offer. They look at signing bonuses. They look at those opportunities. They don't look at, well, we've got a great pension. We've got great insured benefits, because this is not necessarily important to the new entrants to the organization. So we're seeing a decline in that area. Highly skilled, mid-level manager vacancies are becoming difficult, as I said, difficult to recruit for because we are competing now. All municipalities are going through this competition and you're all competing for the same pool of candidates. So it is a buyer's market, a seller's market for the candidates. They are very strong bargaining unit positions. They can negotiate higher salaries. It would have been unheard of maybe 5 years ago in the municipal sector to say, okay, we're recruiting a new employee. You're coming in at the minimum of the salary range. Now you're having to say, okay, well, maybe not the minimum. How about the second step? How about the third step? And sometimes you're recruiting a new person into your organization at the top step. So that disrupts your internal equity for the other employees that are sitting in that same position, but they're working through year after year with their progression through that grid. So it's disrupting your internal equity and it is disrupting your finances as well in terms of how you normally would recruit. Next slide. When we approach any of our compensation reviews, these are our foundation pillars that we address in either directly or indirectly through our comp reviews. And we're on the first slide as well. So first thing about compensation is about fairness. And fairness is, from an employee's perspective, that felt fair pay. Everybody looks at what the person beside them is doing, what time they leave, what time they come in, do they have to work overtime or on the weekends, and how much are they getting paid relative to what I'm getting paid. So we assess fairness through job evaluation. We look at the skills, the qualifications, the working conditions of that position, and we compare it against another job, making sure that jobs of equal value or similar value are grouped together in the same pay band. Compliance speaks to pay equity primarily. I mean, everybody, all municipalities that I have dealt with deal with employment standards very well. Compliance, though, in terms of pay equity compliance is still, we have to make sure that you are maintaining your compliance obligations. It's not just a one-time exercise. And pay equity speaks to the male versus female pay. It's sad to say in 2023 that we still have to talk about male jobs versus female jobs, but it's the nature of the beast, and we are still having to address the compliance. Competitiveness, we want to make sure that our clients are competitive, not necessarily leading the market, but we definitely don't want our clients to be lagging the market, because that doesn't help you through your compensation program to retain those employees that you have and attract the employees. And then the last point we always have to consider, if this was a private sector organization, I would not have that fourth bullet on this slide, which is the affordability aspect. But because I do have to come before council, we do have the staff report that supports it with all of the financial information. We have to make sure that whatever we are recommending is affordable and is practical for the organization. Next slide. Thank you. A quick 101 on pay equity legislation, just so that we do all understand what it is referencing. Number one, all public sector employers must achieve pay equity, and then they must maintain it. So a lot of organizations, we will come in and they say, well, we did our pay equity in 1990, so we're good to go. Sorry, the Pay Equity Commission likes to see that you have maintained your pay equity, because jobs change. Gender class of jobs change as well. And we have to make sure that you've done that male-female comparison of the wages for similar paid jobs. And that's really the essence of pay equity. You take a look at what is a male job being paid and what is a female job being paid. And as long as the female job in that same pay band, meaning that they're of similar value, as long as you're being paid the same as or more, they can be paid more, but as long as they're being paid the same as the male job, then they're pay equity compliant. And again, the value of the job is based on job evaluation through looking at skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions, which are the 4 pillars for pay equity legislation. The legislation is very prescribed, and so it does tell us, you know, who's a male job, what's a female job, and how do we do the analysis. Okay. Next slide. So for internal equity, as I said, you have been using a job evaluation plan that was implemented 10 years ago. It's a good plan still. It has, because McDowell, just to give a little bit of background, McDowell Associates was the company that I used to work for. And then it was purchased by Gallagher Benefit Services. So we have taken on all of the McDowell tools. Since that period of time, we have updated the job evaluation plan. We've made it a little bit more contemporary in terms of reflecting jobs as they exist today, as opposed to 10 years ago. Qualifications have changed, mandated legislation, experience certifications and licenses have changed. So we've updated the plan. So it's important that we do take a look at that plan and make sure it evolves with the organization. So it was, as I say, the slide indicates that there were some challenges with the plan. It wasn't being as responsive. You do an evaluation of a job and you go, yeah, but it's still falling in the wrong band. We know intuitively it's in the wrong band. So that means that your tool maybe is not as updated as it should be. So we took a look at that. We updated some of the job evaluation factors to reflect some additional things that are important to the organization. And then we change that, which caused us to change a little bit of the weighting, not to get too technical on the JE plan, but we did change up the tools and the weights. And then we had to evaluate all the jobs again, because as soon as you change that much of a plan, it's necessary to make sure all jobs are assessed on these exact same grounds. The job descriptions were all updated. Managers, I believe, were engaged in terms of updating the job descriptions as we were ramping up to implement this program. And so they reflect current duties and responsibilities. Job descriptions came to the consultant. We evaluated all of those positions. So there's some consistency in how the jobs were evaluated by having a centralized evaluator. And then we came up with, because the job evaluation results in points, we come up with a new banding structure. The intent of the job evaluation, I'll call it a refresh, was not to totally blow up your current structure. It was to say, have we got all of the jobs, even those ones that weren't evaluated 10 years or since 10 years passed, are they in the right band? And so there has been some shift in the organizational structure in the hierarchy of the positions, and that's reflected in the analysis that we have provided. So it wasn't a total blow up. We didn't go from 40 pay bands to 12 pay bands or the vice versa. We just kind of tweaked where we thought it was appropriate. Next slide. So the first point here, the intent behind the job evaluation plan, the process of evaluating the positions is to make sure that we have a banding structure that has credibility and provides integrity to your compensation program for employees. Because again, it's all about felt fair pay, and people, despite saying compensation is confidential, everybody pretty well knows what everybody else makes in the organization. So each of the 173 positions was placed into one of the 22 job bands. We did have some issues with the banding structure as well in the existing one right now. We had some of the new positions that had been incorporated into the organization up at the senior management level that didn't actually fit into a band. They just kind of sat there. So we've now incorporated all of the jobs, from visitor services representative at, I believe, the museum, all the way to the CAO position are now included in this structure. And that's a good thing for pay equity compliance as well. Pay equity analysis, we did the analysis on using the approaches that are required by the legislation, which includes job to job, where you have a male job in one band in the same band and is compared to the female job, or proportional value, where you have a band and there's no male position in that band. So we have to do a regression line or a male pay line. The proposed grid that we've come up with, the proposed job rates, were tested for pay equity compliance to make sure that because of proportional value, we didn't arrive at any gaps. And so we had to adjust one band to make sure that you were pay equity compliant. So the proposed grid before you is pay equity compliant and internally equitable. Next slide. In turning our minds to the market review or the external comparators, external equity, we had 10 upper tier municipal organizations as our comparator group. giving consideration to things such as similar size. Size can be budget, it can be employee population, it can be the population served as well. And then we looked at economic and market conditions as well, and geographic characteristics. So urban, rural, how much of that is included in the within the county that they serve. So we have these 10 upper tier municipalities. They're there. If you have any questions on them, obviously we can respond to that. Okay. Next slide. So we completed all of the job matching. So what we did is we reached out to each one of these 10 municipalities and we said, bring us or share, if you could share your salary grids with us, share your organization charts, and we'll do the job matching. On that list of 10 comparators, many of them are my current clients. So I have their job descriptions on file. I've worked with their data before. So the job matching is very robust. We're pretty confident that we have made appropriate matches where we say this is the county of gray position, and here's the equivalent type position. Might have a different title, might have a slightly different hierarchy or organizational structure, but we know the content of the job, and if you did a posting, you would still attract the same kind of people that you're looking for. So we did that job matching. Out of the 173 positions, we matched 95 of them. So it gives us a 55% coverage. And in that respect, we say where we have 4 or more observations. We rely on the 4 observations or more than that, because anything less can be skewed by a particular outlier, or we just don't have the statistical confidence if we have less than 4 observations in our analysis. So we've got good data. We've also made sure that we have matches pretty well across all of the different pay bands as well. On aggregate, the county's pay is at or below the market median being the middle point of the data set. We often refer to it as the 50th percentile. So you are at or below that market median mark, and there are obviously greater deviations. In some instances, you are significantly below market. In other instances, you might be right at market, and then again, you might be above market in some cases. In the report, we have some the detailed analysis, and you'll see that there's annual reporting and there's hourly reporting. The reason that there's a difference in those gaps to market and statistics is not all comparators have the exact same hours of work across each of the different positions. So you might be paying your annual salary on the basis of 18, 20 hours or 35-hour work week, but your comparators could be 40 hours, 37 and a half, 44, quite a variety of different hours. So that'll make the difference in the analysis or the gap to market if you're trying to compare them. Also, the hourly statistics, if we're looking at the aggregate numbers, the hourly statistics includes only those jobs that are part-time that we don't report an annual salary rate for them. Next slide. So my understanding is that the county doesn't have actually a documented target pay policy, but historically, through time, there have been references to a pay policy to pay within a 45th to a 55th percentile of the comparator market organization. We landed on our analysis at the P50 at the middle of the market. We've said this is a competitive zone. You're not leading, you're not lagging, you're sitting right in the middle of your comparator organizations. If you go to the 45th percentile, that means that you're going to be in that lower quarter or lower percentile of the hierarchy of positions. Just on principle, as a consultant, as an advisor to the municipal sector, I would never recommend that you be below the 50th percentile. It's a highly competitive marketplace. You don't want to go to your employees and say, hey, come work for us. We pay less than everybody else. It's just not a really good recruitment strategy or retention strategy, because pay is the first. It's not the only thing, but it is the first thing that people consider when they're looking at an organization. So that's why the last bullet makes reference that we've recommended that the market at very minimum at least target your pay policy to be at the 50th percentile. Next slide. So often, when you're doing these kinds of reviews, we talk about being competitive. Well, what does competitive really mean? It's not an exact science. So we have this gauge or some parameters that we use as a general principle. So if you have a gap of plus or minus 5%, so your job is maybe 3% over market or 3% under market. For all intents purposes, we would say that you are competitive. People won't leave your job for 3% raise or, well, they won't take a lower job usually or a lower pay job. But plus or minus 5% is pretty reasonable. So we say you're competitive. So you have 41% of those 95 jobs that we tested are market competitive. It's a little bit of an aha moment to say only 41% of your jobs are market competitive. If you're in the plus or minus 5 to 10% zone, so the yellow zone, we say, okay, they're competitive, but you might want to keep an eye on them because as the market changes, you might start losing these employees. You might find it a little bit difficult to recruit for these positions because people are okay, you know, if you're going to pay me 9% more for the same job I'm doing here and I don't have to move my house, I can commute to the next municipality. Yeah, I think I can take that. So then we look at the gap, the red zone, which is the we call them the at-risk positions. They're very vulnerable because it's plus 10% you are from market. So if you're paying less than 10% of what the market is offering out there, in some of the detailed jobs, you are paying 20% less than what the market is saying at the middle of the market, never mind at the high end of the market. So that means that these are very definitely high-risk positions. And if we look at the analysis, you'll see that some of the positions are in IT, hard to recruit right now for IT positions, especially with all the security and issues that are going on with cyber attacks and so forth. IT is very important. You don't want to have vacancies there, but you're below market. Some of the planning positions are below market. Some of the engineering positions are below market, and these are significant gaps to market. So those are the ones that you really want to watch. We have addressed, once we look at the market analysis, we then look at our job evaluation to see, have we actually addressed some of that through job evaluation by taking that job and moving it into a higher pay band? So that's one of the ways that we can address that. Or if you are overpaying for a position, if you're 10, 15% over the market rate, we also take a look at that job and say, is it in the right band? Should it has the job changed so significantly over time that you're no longer, it's not the high profile that it was, it's not the hot skill, it's not, as critical. Maybe technology has helped carve off some of the technical aspects or the complex aspects of that position. So maybe it should be in a lower pay band now. So we took a look at that relative to the market. So we use the market data to help inform some of the job evaluation as well. Okay. So wrapping up all of the pieces together, we've done the job evaluation. We did the market review. Then we tested again for pay equity compliance. We've landed on the P50 as the recommended pay policy, thinking that it is a reasonable position for the organization to be. If you would like to consider a higher pay policy, we can definitely entertain that. However, we think that the P50 is a reasonable place to position yourself. When we are doing the salary grid, we also have to take into consideration some compensation design principles. And by that, I primarily am referring to what we call the vertical spread of a salary grid. So that's the difference between one pay band and the next pay band. We'd like to see somewhere in the range of at least 5% between bands, because you've theoretically evaluated jobs into band 2 as this and band 3 as this, and the band 3 jobs presumably have higher level of skill, qualifications, experience, whatever else has contributed to their evaluation to be in a higher pay band. So you need to make sure that there's at least a noticeable difference to recognize those higher skill positions that you have. So we like to see about a 5%. So we test that grid as well, making sure that we do have this vertical spread that complies with the good compensation principles. Another way of talking about it is compression. You hear the term compression where the salaries are too close together. So it's just another way of phrasing it. And then when we do the grid, we also have, as I say, put the filter on for affordability. So we don't always migrate to, if P50 is going to take you way over budget. I mean, if there's a lot of incumbents in that band, we have to take that into consideration as well. Okay. So the new grid, the old grid had 4 steps. 4% between each step. The new grid, we've recommended a 5-step grid. It does provide you with a little bit more longevity in your grid so that presumably when things get back to normal, if ever, you hire at the minimum step 1, and then you have at least 5 years of incremental increases that incumbent can receive based on merit. So you've got a 5-year span for that, that grid to have some life for that incumbent or that position. We've gone from 4% between steps to 3.5%, in part to counter the 5 steps that we were introducing, but also it's 3.5% considered a merit increase. That's a healthy increase. 4% is on the upper end. We do have municipalities that have 6%. And if it works for them, that's great. Just generally in the marketplace, what we would see is somewhere between 3 and 4%. So we've landed on 3.5% between steps. And then, as I said, the proposed salary grid is aligning to the where we take step 5, which we call the job rate. We're aligning it to the 50th percentile of the market, or taking into consideration pay equity, because we did have to adjust one that's a little bit higher than the P50 to make sure that we were pay equity compliant. Or if your current job rates are higher than P50, we leave it at the current job rate. We would never put anyone's salary down. Just not a good practice. It's not a good retention tool to say, hey, good news, we've done a comp review and we're lowering your salary. So it just doesn't make good sense. So those are the things that we take into consideration. The rates and the costing that are presented are considered preliminary at this point in time. We have validated the hierarchy of positions with the senior management group. So validating, meaning they've taken a look at it and based on their understanding of the organization and the positions, they believe that it's reasonably equitable, but we have not yet rolled it out to employees. And we had committed to employees that we would roll out the proposed grid to not the grid, but the hierarchy. We won't show them salaries, but we'll show them where their positions are banded and give them an opportunity to say, yeah, that sounds good. Or, well, wait a minute, I used to be in this band aligned with these jobs and now I'm not. I would like to request a reconsideration meeting with the consultant. And it's just so that the consultant then and the employee have an opportunity to chat about the job. Job descriptions, no matter how well they're written, sometimes do not pick up nuances that that are relevant to a job evaluation process. So that's why we have indicated that it is still preliminary at this point in time. Next slide. The last point, it's connected to the comp review, but it's kind of outside of the comp review because we did not look at the unionized employee groups, but HR is very mindful of what their male comparators are. When you have a unionized employee group and that employee group does not have a male comparator within their own organization, for example, CUPE or OPSU or whatever it might be, you then have to reach into another organization, part of the organization, to get a male comparator. We did have one of those situations where we have the planner position. It is identified in the pay equity plan for social services as the male comparator for that group. So when we adjust the non-union planner salary grid, it does have an impact on social services pay equity compliance. And so it's been estimated here as to what that impact would be. Okay. And I think that's the last slide.
Well, thank you, Jane. Certainly appreciate your presentation. I will just note that we are going to have a closed session right after Jane's presentation to discuss specifics and numbers. Jen's going to be presenting a follow-up report. But for now, if there's any questions related to the process and what Jane has just described here, we'd certainly entertain those now. Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you to the presenter, can you tell me how much consideration was given to cost of living in Grey County in this comparator?
Short answer, none, other than that when you do your annual increases, that's when you would incorporate cost of living. We can't incorporate the consumer price index, which is reflecting the cost of living. We can't include things like the cost of housing. I know I've worked with Blue Mountain and I worked with the town of Collingwood, and cost of living was a consideration, or very, very important in terms of we would like our employees to be able to afford to live in our own municipality. However, the compensation plan can't be based on what's the cost of everybody having a nice house or being able to afford a good living wage. All I can say is that it does, your rates exceed the living wage that is in the general vicinity.
Right. I think I'm looking more at cost of living in Grey County being less than some of the comparators.
Perhaps I'll ask CEO Wingrove to respond to that one.
I think when you look at the 10 counties that are our comparator group, I think if we were to undertake an assessment of the general cost of living across all of those 10 counties, I don't believe that you would find that Grey was substantially different than those, and that perhaps that might have changed more in the last few years than what we had experienced prior to the pandemic. But certainly we know what's happened to housing prices and the cost of living generally in Grey County, in Ontario, in the world. And I think in some ways we're kind of all in the same boat at this point.
Councillor Greg.
Thanks, Jane, for the presentation here today. And through the warden, I have a question. If you go to page 5 in your presentation, I'm going to go back to the chart that's inserted, the list of comparators. Grey County is not well aligned with our closest comparators right in the middle. I see population of 95,000 above us, 104,000 below us. Our population, our full-time, that FT is not well aligned with the two most closest comparators, or the median at the bottom. Can you tell me what EES stands for? And I presume FT is full times, but if you can elaborate on that.
Councillor Greg, I'm not sure that we're clear on what chart you're referring to.
Page 5.
Of Jane's report?
Of the report or the presentation?
The report.
Okay, we're coming to the report. Or Jennifer, do you want to take that?
Through you, Mr. Warden, to Councillor Greg. The final full report is appended to my staff report. So I don't believe it's been properly introduced yet. So perhaps that's a question either we can answer in closed, or Jane can fully explain when my report is before you.
Okay, you're all right. Any other questions on Jane's yes, on the report, Jane's report presentation? Councillor Apples.
Thank you very much, Jane, for doing the job evaluation. And I guess that kind of indicating my time here. I was with the council or county council when we did the job evaluation in 2013. And I'm not sure that I've still got the pencils out of my eyes after going through 170 jobs and doing them all at that point in time. But a very worthwhile thing to do. And I'm just a little bit disappointed that it's kind of fallen off, but it is something that happens. My question so is around the 50th percentile, and that we should be, if everybody's going to the 50th percentile, is that the new 0 or the new 100%? And I guess the other factor, the other question into that, if I can, on the second part, what's the difference? We keep talking about percentages, and if it's $20,000 difference between 100% and 0, it's a lot. But in a number of other jobs, programs that I've worked with, the difference is usually $5 in some points. And I'm not meaning by hour, I mean by job. So I guess a little bit more on that 50th percentile, that we've got to strive to get there. Everybody's getting there. So why are we even using it anymore?
Yeah, oh, go ahead, ma'am. Okay. Good point. The 50th percentile is the middle of the market. A number of these comparators that we have, I'm working with them right now or have recently worked with them. They are actually Northumberland County. I will use as an example. We did a market review. Their pay policy was to pay at the P60 of the marketplace, and it was a heavily Eastern Ontario influenced marketplace. They are known to be lower payers. Northumberland County itself was competing not with them, but was competing with Durham Region and the city of Toronto and the whole GTA. So despite council approving the recommendations at the outset, there was a supplementary request to go out and redo the market, but looking at these different comparator groups. Maybe they only need to be at the 50th percentile of that new comparator group because they are higher payers. So that's where we're standing at that. Some of these comparators are at P55, some of them are at P50, some are at P60, as I indicated. So you're right, it could be just, if everybody's going to the P60, do we need to go to the P60 and just keep accelerating along the way? My recommendation here is get yourself to P50. P50 is a respectable place to be, given the conditions in the marketplace where other municipalities are going higher. I don't know any of them that are going lower. So I would say at least get to P50. It keeps you competitive, and that's what it means, is that you are competitive, that you're not the lower payer in the in the respective sector, including upper tier and lower tier. So it's a good place to be. It's defensible, it's acceptable and defensible to employees as well for recruitment and retention. The difference between P50, we can model P55, we can model P60. You're right. In some instances, you're probably approaching P60 in some of your pay bands. Other bands are not approaching P60. So we've got a bit of a mix here. I'm actually stumbling over my words, but it's the difference could be minor, but in some pay bands, it could be quite significant to get to the P60, depending on what the nature of the positions are in that group. And I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Any other questions for Jane? I note that councillors McQueen, Mackey have joined us online. Okay, well, thank you very much, Jane. Appreciate the presentation. Do we need a motion to receive that? No. Okay, so we need to go in closed session now when Jen will be able to discuss on a more wholesome level the implications of what is being proposed. So motion to, you want to recess? Okay, we'll recess first and then or should we?
I don't think this is going to take long.
I'm getting requests for a recess, so let's, do you want to go in close first or recess first? Okay, we'll come back at, well, let's see if we can be back by 25 after 11.
Thanks.
I believe we have everybody back that we need. So we will, Rob, when I get the vote or the wave, we'll proceed to. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. I'll ask for a motion to go in camera. Councillor Eccles, Councillor DeBreen. Yep. We are, the committee of the whole does now go into closed session pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act as amended to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual and labor relations or employee negotiations, specifically non-union compensation and pay equity review. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. So we are